This is the Nest Sitter and Nest Protector workshop. We will be learning about how to build our own nest cages that we can put on top of turtle nests to keep eggs safe from predators, as well as how to properly nest sit, which means watching over females as they lay their nests during nesting season, which will keep them as well as their eggs safe during that critical period from drivers as well as predators. Hi there, and welcome to your Turtle Guardians online workshop. My name is Meredith, and I wanted to introduce myself since all of our workshops are online this season. I'll be hosting your Turtle Guardians citizen science programs this year, and I'm really excited. If you have any questions at all about the content of this workshop, please reach out and email me. My email and the citizen science email will be provided at the end of this slideshow. Thank you. Let's talk about why nesting turtles need our help. Turtles like to nest in soft substrates, so soft ground, sand, loose gravel, and sometimes road shoulders can fit this description. So female turtles will dig their nests along the sides of roads, not realizing that this is putting themselves and their nests in great danger to being run over by cars, and also in the case of the hatchlings, they are probably more accessible to predators along roads than there would be in the forest or along wetlands. So, where we come in is that we can offer protection. When we find a nesting turtle, we can sit there, relax, enjoy watching over a turtle, and make a difference to make sure that no cars run over the turtle while she's nesting and is vulnerable on the side of the road, and that no predators come and disturb her. And then immediately after, we can mark the nest and either cage that nest or have the start team come and dig it up so that nest is immediately protected and has a way better chance of survival because it will not be predated and it will not be run over by a car if we do our jobs properly. So that's huge because, as you probably know, turtles are really, really slow at replacing themselves. So because turtles are so long-lived and so slow growing, they take a long time to get to the age before they can reproduce. So some species here in Ontario can take up to 15 or 20 years before a female is old enough to lay eggs. And then once she lays eggs, most of her eggs, year after year after year, will not make it to an adult aged turtle because they will be eaten before they even hatch, or they will be eaten as a small hatchling before they can grow to be a juvenile or adult where they are more able to resist predators. So the help that we can give turtles at the nesting stage is really, really crucial because we can give them a leg up. We can give them a head start and a better chance to surviving to that adult age where they can replace themselves in the population. So what you're doing here is really, really helpful and definitely will make a big difference for nesting turtles. So what can you expect to do as a nest sitter? Well, it's pretty simple, definitely important, but not too complicated. You can expect to be called or texted, whatever you tell us is your preferred way of contact, whenever there is a turtle that is nesting in your area that we have got a tip on. So whether that comes from our road research program or a call in to our hotline, we will have information on a turtle that is nesting along a road close to you, and we'll contact you and ask if you're free and willing to nest it. If you say yes, you will travel out to the spot and you're essentially just going to watch over her. Make sure that no vehicles run over her and make sure that no predators disturb her, and then you're going to follow a simple procedure to make a decision whether or not you can put a cage over that nest or wait until a start team staff comes and will dig up the nest. You're going to also be trained in this slideshow to learn how to properly help a turtle across the road in case that nesting turtle tries to cross the road right after she's done, so you can help her with that. And you'll also learn how to properly build and install your nest cages so that you're able to do that if the nest is in a safe place to cage. So nesting can be divided into a few stages. The first stage is sort of pre-nesting, and it would be test digs. Not all females will do test digs, but they are pretty common, and you can often see a bunch of test digs beside a nesting turtle showing that she's done a few, tried to find the perfect location, and then she's settled on the spot where she actually is nesting. Now, when turtles do these test digs, what they're trying to figure out is if the conditions in that particular spot are exactly what they want. So these conditions are soil moisture, temperature, size of particles in the soil, and the slope of the ground at that point. So all of those factors are going to work together to build the nest environment, and that internal nest environment is really key to success of the eggs and the hatchlings. So females are going to be really picky when they pick those conditions, and once they've settled on a spot, they're going to start to dig for real. So this digging looks like they're sort of swaying back and forth. At first it'll look like they're just sort of scraping the surface with their back legs. So digging is always done with their back legs. They'll slowly scrape the back with their right leg, and then they'll use their left leg, and they'll just slowly scrape soil away until you start to see that nest cavity form. And then as the nest cavity gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more apparent that they're actually digging a hole. And once they really get going, their back legs and their carapace will sort of start to drop as that hole gets bigger. Then once they've dug a big enough hole, they will lay their eggs. And when they are laying, sometimes it will look like they're sort of bobbing back and forth, but this time frontwards and backwards, not side to side. But that can be really subtle, and you don't always see that. When they are laying their eggs, depending on the species, sometimes they will use their back leg after a few eggs have plopped out. They will sort of move around those eggs delicately with their back legs so they place them where they want. This is more common in snapping turtles just because they lay so many more eggs than our other species. And then once they have laid all their eggs, they go to the covering stage. So here is a video of a snapping turtle covering. It can look similar to digging, but the key difference is that you can see here as you start to watch that she's actually bringing soil into where she is digging. She's not scraping it away. It's a little bit later in the game, so she's almost done covering her nest, so you can't see the eggs. But when you first come upon a nesting turtle, sometimes you can't tell at first if she's at the beginning of digging or at the end of covering. But once you watch, you'll start to see either a hole starts to form and that hole gets bigger and bigger, so she's digging, or she might just be at the end of covering. If you catch her at the beginning of covering, you'll probably still see the eggs, and then you'll know that she's already laid, so she is in the covering stage. The supplies that you need to bring with you are included on your protocol document, which you got in your volunteer package, but let's highlight them here anyways. So you want to make sure that you bring a high-vis bright vest because you're going to be on a roadside, so to stay safe and visible, you need a really bright colored reflective vest that will let cars know that you are sitting there. Speaking of sitting, you're going to want to be comfy, so we recommend that you bring a nice camping chair or any type of chair that works that you can get in your car, just because turtles can nest for up to a few hours, so you're going to want to stay comfy. You can also bring a book or something quiet to help you stay entertained while nest sitting. You're going to want to bring a flashlight if you are starting a shift in the late afternoon or evening, just in case it gets dark, so you can still see the turtle. And then it's a good idea to bring water and a snack to stay hydrated, to wear sunscreen and a hat even later on in the afternoon because the sun can get you when you're just sitting still. And then a bug net is a great idea, or bug spray. And then you are, of course, going to want to bring your actual protocol document there with you, especially your first couple of shifts, just to remind you what to do in case you forget. And that document we're going to go through later in the slideshow, but that sort of just outlines the few steps that you need to take, how many times to look over at the turtle, how often, how to help that turtle cross the road if she needs it after. So what are the things that you need to bring with you to nest sit? Well, first off, most importantly, you definitely want to be bringing a high visibility vest or jacket, so that's reflective and bright colored because you are going to be sitting on the road shoulder, nest sitting this turtle. You also want to bring a chair so that you are comfortable because turtles can nest for a few hours, so you want to be prepared. You can, and along that same long line, bring a book or something else to entertain yourself for a few hours. Often turtles will nest into the evening, so you're going to want to bring a flashlight. Also, bug netting or bug jackets is definitely recommended. The bugs can get bad at this time. If you're going to be nesting during the day or in the late afternoon, you're going to want to bring sunscreen. You also probably want to bring water to stay hydrated and some food because you can be there for a few hours. And then you're going to want to bring your nest protocol document just to remind you of the instructions and what you're going to be wanting to do so you can feel confident. And that also has the start hotline number on it so you know that number to call. So the first thing you're going to do when you find your nesting turtle is place a pylon or a sign saying nesting turtle next 10 meters, about 2 car lengths or 10 meters away from the turtle to protect it from oncoming traffic. You want to be comfy during this nest sitting shift because turtles can take up to 4 hours to nest. So you want to bring a blanket, snacks, water, book, chair, and relax along the side of the road, making sure that you're completely off the road. If it's nighttime or it's going to be nighttime, you want to make sure that you have a headlight or flashlight so you're able to see the turtle. You're going to be looking over and checking on the turtle at least every 5 minutes, but of course you can do it more often than that. Okay, so I wanted to take a look at your protocol document with you so you're familiar with it, you know what information is here, and you know to use it. So this was included in your volunteer package, and it basically has the guidelines that you want to follow in order to do the best job possible at protecting your nesting turtle and protecting its nest. So first, the first little page you can kind of go through on your own, talks about the time commitment, your role, which we've already covered in the slideshow. What I'd like to highlight with you, and we've also covered this list of what you should bring with you. What I want to go through are these guidelines. So first off, you need to find the turtle. If the turtle was called in by a road research team, which is another one of our citizen science programs, then they will have placed a turtle next 10 meters sign, a reflective sign that will help you spot the turtle, or they actually might still be on site waiting for you. So either way, the turtle will be easy for you to locate. And then if the turtle was called into the hotline, the start hotline, as a tip by someone just driving by, it's going to be a little bit trickier, but there are some good tips and tricks for how to find nesting turtles. So you're going to look for something in the dirt that looks almost like a rock, depending on how big it is, and there's going to be disturbed soil behind it. And basically you're looking for a turtle lying in the ground. She could be rocking back and forth gently, but there's definitely going to be some soil behind her. So that's what you're going to look for. We will do our best to get a accurate as possible location description from the person that was driving by, but of course you might have to do a little bit more sleuthing and driving around to find a turtle reported this way than a turtle that we had reported from one of our citizen scientists, because they will have been able to give us much more exact location. So once you arrive on site, there are 2 really big rules that you need to follow. The first really big rule is that you are not going to do anything to startle the turtle. So you are going to stay at all times 2 car lengths away. You're going to be really quiet. You're not going to shine any bright lights on her, although red lights are okay because turtles actually can't see red light. So this means when you're placing a sign, so if you come upon the turtle and this has been a turtle that has been called in by a random person going by, there's not already a sign there left by our road researcher, so you're going to put the sign that says turtle nesting next 10 meters, making sure that the reflective side is facing oncoming traffic. When you're doing that, you have to stay at least 10 meters away from her, so potentially that means crossing the road, walking on the other side for a while, and then crossing the road again, putting it 10 meters in front of her, crossing the road to the other side again, walking back. So really taking that seriously, because if you startle her and she abandons her nests, you will feel really bad, and we don't want that. So it's definitely possible to not startle her if you just follow these guidelines. Also, I would recommend when pulling over that you stay at least 5 car lengths away from her. So cars are loud, have lights, and are very, very scary for turtles. So I would stay at least 5 car lengths away from her when you park the car, shut the doors quietly, and then come closer after that. When you're setting up your station, of course, same rule, stay at least 2 car lengths away, set up a nice chair, your blankets, whatever you've brought to stay comfy, and relax, because you might be here for a few hours as you wait for your turtle to finish nesting. When actually watching over the turtle, the general rule of thumb is that you're going to make sure you look over at her and check on her from a distance. You're not going close to her or anything. Every 5 minutes. So that means keeping an ear out for her always. You'll probably hear her if she starts to finish and move along. But just in case, you're for sure looking over every 5 minutes. You're probably going to do this more often naturally because you'll be curious at how she's doing, but at least every 5 minutes. In the nighttime, that might mean if it's dark enough, shining a light. If you're going to have to shine a light to check on her, shine the light in front of her or behind her, not directly on her, so you don't startle her. Or even better, use a red light, which she can't see, and then you can shine it directly on her. So the next big rule, so I said there's 2 big rules. The second big rule is that you're going to mark that nest location right after she's done nesting. So as soon as she's done nesting, you're going to have your light object ready. By light, I mean a non-heavy object, not light in color. So that could be a baseball hat, a glove, a small book, anything you have on hand in the car or with you on person. And you're going to place it directly on top of the nest so that you know where that is. For the staff team that is coming, if they need to dig up that nest, they know exactly where to dig it up. Or if you talk with the start team and it is a safe place to cage the nest, you know exactly where to cage it. So this is so important. You would think that it would be impossible to lose a turtle nest after sitting 10 meters away from it being laid, but it's actually possible to lose it because other than snapping turtles, there's pretty much no trace of a nest after it's been laid. So after this has happened, you then want to make sure that that turtle is not crossing the road. If she is, that's okay, but you just want to make sure that you're helping her cross the road safely. She's going to be really exhausted and tired from laying her nest, and of course, she will be vulnerable when crossing the road to cars. So when it's safe, if she does start to cross the road, please assist her across the road. And we're going to talk about this in the slideshow how to help turtles cross the road safely and properly, but that information is also here in your protocol document. And then the other thing here, I just saw that I didn't explicitly say, once that turtle is done nesting, you're going to be calling the start hotline, which is here. So it's a good idea to bring that protocol document with you because that number is there, or put it in your phone. And you're going to be telling them that your turtle is done nesting. They will either dispatch a team to come dig up that nest, or they will chat with you and figure out if it's actually possibly safe to just put a nest cage on, in which case they will ask if you're comfortable doing that. If you are, you can do it, or they will come out and put that nest cage over the nest. And that's it. So we just mentioned 2 big rules in that video looking through the protocol. I just want to reiterate them just in case you sort of zoned out or your eyes glazed over during that longer video of the protocol. These are the 2 big takeaways that you absolutely need to get right when nesting. Number 1 big rule, when your turtle is nesting, you're staying at least 2 car lengths away from the turtle. And you want to be quiet. You don't want to shine any bright lights on her. You don't want to startle her. And when you're parking, you're going to stay at least 5 car lengths away from her. So once you're out on the ground, you can approach her to up to 2 car lengths. But when you're parking and you're in the car, keep that car, I would say, at least 5 car lengths away. The second big and important rule is that as soon as your turtle is done nesting, you're going to mark that nest with a non-heavy or light object. It can be a hat, a glove, a small book, anything you have on hand, but you want to make sure you do it as soon as the turtle is done nesting. So when she's in the covering stage, you want to be maybe watching her a little bit more closely, because once she starts to get, especially if it's not a snapping turtle, if it is a snapping turtle, you can still spot her nest after the fact, but if it's a Blandings or a painted turtle, you are going to have a really hard time finding that nest, even though you've been sitting close by to her, waiting for her to finish her nest that whole time. It's still going to be hard to find that nest if you don't mark it right away. So make sure you mark that nest as soon as possible, right after she is done nesting. Hello, this is Meredith, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make a nest cage to properly protect a turtle nest. So this is part of the Turtle Guardians Nest Sitter series, but you don't have to be a nest sitter to build a nest cage. Anyone can build a nest cage. It's pretty simple. We're going to show you our favorite design today. So I've cut some chicken wire here. I've got some gloves on just so that I don't get pricked by the sharp edges, but it's not necessary. I'm just taking extra care. My chicken wire here is 3 feet by 3 feet, and each grid is 2 inches by 2 inches. It's really important that we get that length of grid because that's the sweet spot where predators cannot get their limbs in to get the hatchlings or the eggs, and the hatchlings can still get out. So it's really important that we have it 2 inches by 2 inches and that we cut our square of chicken wire at least 3 feet by 3 feet. So that's what we've done here. Okay, so now we're ready to get started. This is the first step. We're going to cut into each corner 6 inches. So because each of these squares is 2 inches long, I'm going to cut diagonally into 3 squares. I've got some tin snips here. They're going to help me cut my wire. These corners are sometimes a bit hard to cut through 2 wires at once, so I'm sort of cutting through one, then the other. So that's 2 so far. You can see, oh, actually 3, sorry. So I've cut through 3 here. So that's one corner done. I'm going to now do the same for the other ones. So now we've cut into each of our corners and we're ready for the next step. A nice tip that I can suggest for you is to use a hard edge that's going to help you fold. So I've placed it here flush with the corner, so this is the corner, and how you find the corner is just sort of where your cut ends. So you can see when I fold these sides up, that's going to become the corner. And to help fold and make a straight edge, I've placed this block of wood here to help me get that straight edge. I'm going to fold this way. This is going to be my extra wire that will help to attach the other piece. I'm going to bend it around. So now I have some options here. I can use this extra wire to bend around, or if you like zip ties, you can also use a zip tie to attach these two. I think I'm just going to bend it around because it's pretty malleable, but zip ties also definitely work. You're going to do this for every corner, and then you'll have your nest cage. Definitely pretty simple. Probably a good idea to, if you're going to be using this method I am using, make sure you're attaching the wire a couple places just for maximum security. So I'm doing the same thing on this side as I did on the other side. You can even cut this wire if you want, because this is just extra wire at this point, and use that to attach. All I'm doing is just bending it around. And now I've got a pretty sturdy corner That's not going anywhere. And I'm going to do that same thing for all my other corners. We're on our last corner in here now. You can see it's taking shape. I've still got my wood piece in here. So I'm just going to do just as I've been doing. Bend that last piece, curl over all this extra wire, and use it as a securing method. It's taken me really no time at all, super easy to do. And all you need is 2-inch chicken wire and some wire feathers. I would recommend wearing gloves because that's definitely made it more comfy for me. And yeah, now we have our nest cage. So we're ready to install it. You can see it stands upright. And I'll just bend these a little bit so that it's even. We're ready to put it outside. So we've got our nest cage ready to be installed. I wanted to show you a few different options for how to secure this to the ground so that it stays and that nothing can get its paws underneath. So basically you want anything that's sort of like a tent peg. You can use just usual tent pegs. You can also use some of these more sturdy guys, but normal tent pegs definitely work. You just might need more of them along the base. Here's just a usual tent peg that we would have. So we would be hooking that onto the edge and then placing that in the ground. Now these guys we also have, which are pretty intense, but they're really going to do a nice job. So this one is sort of like a dog peg that you would peg into the ground and have a leash on. It has a little clip here. You would attach a carabiner, coil that into the ground, and then this cage is going nowhere. You would obviously need more than one. And then this is sort of the same idea. Again, you'd need a little carabiner. You'd clip that onto here, and then you would curl this into the ground. If your ground's soft enough, you can possibly use just your foot, or of course you could use a hammer. And yeah, we're going to go do that outside and show you what it looks like. So when installing your cage, you're going to lift up the light object you would use to mark the nest and make sure now that the nest is directly in the center of your cage so that there's lots of nice buffer room of cage around your nest. If the nest is not centered, the cage will not do its job properly and some of the eggs might be damaged and dug up. Now I'm putting in my first tent peg. So I've chosen to go here with just a simple, usual tent peg, not one of the sort of fancier kind. This one will do the trick for sure. I'm using a hammer because the ground's a little bit too hard for me to use my hand or my foot. I'm going to ensure that the tent peg has hooked over the cage to make sure it's nice and firmly secured into the ground. I'm going to use 4 tent pegs, 1 for each corner, which is the minimum that we ask you to use. But if you really want to be sure that your nest cage isn't going anywhere, you could also use 8 and place a tent peg at every corner and 1 in between each corner. Once you've done this, you are set to go and your nest is protected. So a decision that you'll have to make once the turtle is done nesting is whether or not her nest is in a safe place to put a cage on top of. So the main question that helps you determine this is whether or not a vehicle could drive over the nest. If the answer is yes, then putting a cage there isn't safe because a cage could damage that vehicle. At the same time, of course, we don't want to leave the nest there then because then the eggs can also be driven over by a vehicle. So in that case, we're going to remove the eggs by digging them up and then incubating them at a start location. The start staff team will be the ones to dig them up. But if it is appropriate to cage, you are able to install a nest cage that you have made yourself based on the guidelines that we've shown in the previous 2 videos. So in order to determine if it is in a place where vehicles could drive over, some simple questions to think about would be whether or not it is inside or outside a guardrail. So if it's outside a guardrail, it's for sure not going to be driven over by a car or a vehicle because that guardrail is going to protect that from happening. And then at the same time, if it's in a ditch, it would be considered safe because vehicles are unlikely to be driving in the ditch or to end up in the ditch, so that would also be a safe place. And then other specific conditions that would be sort of unique to the location that would make it somewhere where vehicles could or could not drive over. Those are the things you want to pay attention to when deciding whether or not it's a safe place to cage. And then the other question that you need to ask yourself for whether or not you can cage it is, if it is on private property, do you have permission to put the cage down? Each cage is technically actually needs to have a permit number attached to it. So if you are going to make nest cages, you need to contact us and we can give you the information for the permit number, which will just be put on in a little tag with the nest cage, because we need to follow, of course, due diligence and proper procedure. And so if you are going to be building your own nest cage and installing it, you just need to make sure that you've told us about it, and that our permit number is on it and that we know where it is. And yeah, these are the things that you need to consider. If a nest cage that you've built is not going to be put onto your own property, you need to make sure that you've tagged that nest cage so that if anyone comes upon it and is wondering what it is, they are able to read the information, they know not to disturb it, and they have a contact phone number to call if they have questions. We are legally required to do this under the permit that we receive from the government. On this tag, you should be putting our permit number, which you can contact us for, the START phone number, so that's the START hotline, Saving Turtles at Risk Today, which the phone number is right here, and then the phone number for the Land Between charity, which is the headquarters of the Turtle Guardians program. And if you email us at the email at the end of this slideshow, we can send you a blurb that you can put on a luggage tag or any other kind of tag you'd like to fashion up for your nest cage. That will have all this information as well as our current year's permit number. To help a turtle across the road that is not a snapping turtle, so it could be a Blandings turtle that you find like the picture here, or a painted turtle, or another species, you want to remember how you would hold a hamburger. So you're kind of holding a hamburger upside down here. So you're going to have your thumbs on top of the shell, on top of the carapace. The side of your hands are going to hug the side of the turtle, depending on how big the turtle is. So here we have a pretty big Blandings. We're going to use all of our fingers underneath, hugging the plastron, and we're going to hold this turtle really tight. So turtles have hard shells. Holding them tightly and firmly is not going to hurt them. It's actually going to keep them really safe because wild turtles do not like to be held, so they're going to wriggle, squirm around, maybe even try and scratch you a little bit because they want you to let them go. So when you're holding them and carrying them across the road, of course you want to have a firm grip on them so you don't drop them. And then you're also going to want to angle their belly shell away from you because they also might pee if they're scared. So that's how you're going to grip them. And then you are going to move them across the road in the direction that they're heading. This is really important. So even if they're not traveling or walking anywhere, when you find them on the road, the direction that they're facing also works. Turtles are really intentional in the way that they navigate. So even if it looks like they're crossing the road into a direction that doesn't make sense, doesn't look like great turtle habitat, you still want to carry them in this direction because they're going there for a reason. And if you carry them across in the other direction, they will just turn around and try again to get to where they're originally going. So that's what you're going to do, and that works for any species other than the snapping turtle. Alright, so snapping turtles are a little bit different, obviously, because they do snap on land. Now I just want to remind everyone that snapping turtles do this because unlike other turtles, they can't withdraw into their shell. Their belly shells are really small, and in general their head and legs and tail are really large compared to their shell, so they're not able to fit inside. So their only protection on land from a threat is to snap. And a big, scary person on two legs is definitely going to seem like a threat to them. So that's why they would snap at us. And they're only going to do this if we provoke them. So we don't want to provoke them, especially walking around their face region. That's really going to scare them. So we're going to avoid that. So when we help a wild snapping turtle across the road, we're going to make sure to hold them and grip them from behind. Now the proper grip here is you're going to grab the top shell just above the either side of the tail in between the legs. You're going to grab that top shell there with your thumb, and then you're going to place your fingers underneath the carapace. You're going to kind of feel squishy skin there. And don't worry, you're not hurting the turtle. You're going to grab them tightly. And then if you can pick them up and just carry them across the road when it's safe to do so this way. But some snapping turtles can be really large, so it might be hard to support their weight and carry them across the road this way. In that case, you can do a modification of this in what we call the wheelbarrow, where you still grip them from the back here, but you only lift their back legs and you keep their front legs on the ground. And then you sort of shimmy them across the road and help them walk. You can kind of think of it as when you used to give wheelbarrow races to your friends as a kid. That's what you're going to be doing for a snapping turtle. Now, if you don't like either of these methods, there's a couple other methods you could try. So if you have a car mat, which you likely do in your car, you can try and get a snapping turtle onto a car mat and then drag them across, making sure that you're holding a portion of the mat that's far away from its face. You could also try to get them to bite onto a stick or another long object like a snow shovel, and if they hold on, you can drag them across the road this way. Dragging them across the road will give them a bit of road rash. Even though their skin is pretty thick, they can still get kind of like that scrapey along their skin. But remembering that this is still better, so it's still better to do this if that's the only one that you can do, because otherwise they could be killed by a car. So that is it for the Nest Protector module. I hope you've enjoyed this training, and if you have any questions at all, please email me or the team at citizensciencetlb@gmail.com. You can now move on to the quiz. Don't feel nervous about this at all. It's just a simple way to help you solidify the information that we talked about here. You can refer back to the slides if you'd like. No problem at all. And if you have any questions about that quiz, or again, any of the content from the slideshow, please reach out to us at TheLandBetween /Turtle Guardians. Thank you, and enjoy the nest sitting.